We now transition to our G5 high five. Mike is going to do the heavy lifting with 3 of the 5 picks this week. Didn't go so well for me last week, so certainly as good a time as any to maybe switch who's running the offense here. Let's get it started here.
I'm wearing my Mac shirt, very Mac heavy, G5 high five this week. This game should be played on Tuesday. We should be watching this game. We should watch this game yesterday, but I'm laying them with Eastern Michigan against Buffalo. I think it was 6 last time I looked. This Buffalo team is just really bad. They're just bad. They're 125th in the country in passing success rate, 130th in offensive explosion. Cole Snyder, I actually thought he'd be decent. Buffalo native coming in, transferring from Rutgers, kind of a cool story. He's completing just 60% of his passes. He's got as many turnover-worthy plays as big-time throws. And then you look on the other side, Taylor Powell, transfer from Missouri and Troy. He has struggled with turnovers a little bit. He's got 4 touchdowns, 5 picks. But he has 8 big-time throws and just 5 turnover-worthy plays. And he's definitely gotten the bad end of some drops. His completion percentage is 66%. But when you adjust that for drops, it's 78%. So got to catch the ball at Eastern Michigan. But if they do, Powell's been putting it there. They got to catch it. Running back Samson Evans was a backup for the last 2 years. He's finally in the main role. He's averaging 122 yards per carry, leads the MAC, 6th in the entire country. Against Arizona State last week, he had 258 yards and a touchdown. He averaged 7.2 yards per carry. He basically killed Herm Edwards himself. So, and then the Eagles, they rank 38th in the country in finishing drives on offense. This Buffalo defense is 97th at preventing finishing drives. Buffalo's 130th in the country in tackling. I mentioned Evans again. He's 2nd in the MAC in yards after contact, top 20 in the country. I like this Eastern Michigan offense. I feel like they've been kind of, picking up steam the last 2 or 3 years. And I just think Buffalo's really bad. They're going to struggle to tackle. Eastern Michigan's going to pick up big plays through the ground and through the air. And I don't think Buffalo has the dudes to match it. So I'll lay under a touchdown with Eastern Michigan.
Eastern Michigan's a lightning delay away from being the MAC darling. They were playing great against Louisiana. I was bullish on them in the preseason. Then they go ahead and fold after that, super long delay. Don't even cover the number. I think it was 11.5. Really disappointing. They turn around and just lay it on the Sun Devils in Tempe, as you mentioned, ending Herm Edwards' career. I think he one-upped the firing on the tarmac by Lane Kiffin with getting essentially fired in the end zone. He didn't even get off the field in that case, met by his school president and athletic director. Yeah, I'm on Eastern Michigan. I think this is going to be a really fun team. I think they have all of the offensive punch to get it done. And that running game is really what was surprising. This was a team that struggled to run the ball, and now they certainly have their bell cow. So I don't see any reason to get off the Eagles Express here.
Did you see what Eastern Michigan tweeted after the Arizona State game? They tweeted their final score graphic?
I did not see that.
They tweeted the final score graphic, and the caption was just, "You play to win the game."
Oh, all right. Let's not get too big for britches in Ypsilanti. It's
I love a good troll job.
There's not a natural rivalry with Arizona State, but you can't throw any cold water on a social graphics team after a huge win over a Power 5 team. I'm actually going to switch the order. I had this one as my second pick for the G5 high five. Not that the hierarchy matters, but let me keep it in MAC country. Kent State catching 45.5 at Georgia. All right, let's do the autopsy on some of their games here, their paycheck games early in the season. They go to Oklahoma. They lose by 33 points. They hold, I should say, Oklahoma to 33 points. They scored 3 themselves. Dylan Gabriel played the whole game. They limited some of the big plays other than Marvin Mims hurting them. And then in the opener against Washington, they scored 20 points. So they lose 45-20 there. I think this is a team that's primed to take a big jump up once MAC play starts. So the question is Colin Schlee and their offense good enough to give you 14 points against Georgia? And interestingly, I think this really comes down to just power rankings. I think this is purely one that the books pulled out their power rankings. They're like, obviously Georgia can name their number. So we're going to go off of them being the number 1 team in the country and Kent State being way down the board. 45.5 just feels a lot to me with, as I mentioned, Schlee has played well. And he's a dual threat quarterback. So I think that kind of leans in the direction of getting some garbage conversions in the second half when he's playing against second and third stringers. He has 177 yards on the ground through 3 games. I don't know. I look at the way that Georgia addressed this from, a second and third string perspective. They played a ton of third stringers against South Carolina. So I'm going to expect more of that. Kent State and Sean Lewis find a way, in my opinion, score 14 points, lose 56-14, going to go ahead and grab the 45 and a half. I think being over the key number of 6 touchdowns is enough to talk me into the Golden Flashes here. I'm sure that Stuckey somewhere off in Mac land, his brain is always dedicated to this conference, is probably unhappy with this pick. He's not the biggest Kent State fan in the world. But honestly, I just think Georgia is going to be focused on getting back to the SEC next week. They want to keep people healthy. They're never going to be in any jeopardy of losing this game outright. So it seems like too many points. Is this like a 62-0 Georgia game and I'm just not seeing it? Or are you interested in doubling down on the MAC here in week 4?
All I know is Sean Lewis should fist fight his administration and whoever made this schedule, because this is an absolute travesty what they're doing to their program here. I'm not taking it, but I don't necessarily hate it. It's like you said, it's one of those, just if they come out and still have some fight after those first 2 games, it's a big number. The back door will be open the entire game. I'm staying in the MAC as well. I hope Matt Mitchell is just playing Mark Morrison after every one of our picks. I'm going with who I still think is the best team in the MAC is Toledo. I'm taking Toledo against San Diego State. Number's been floating around. It opened as a pick. I think last time I looked, it was like 2.5, 3. I would take it to 3 pretty much. I have bet on Toledo to win the MAC. Still think they're the best team in the conference after the first 3 games. Even in their blowout loss last week to Ohio State, which, you knew was coming, they put up 307 yards. DeQuan Finn had 2 touchdown passes. He rushed for 70 yards and a score as well. So far this year, he's averaging 180 yards passing with 5 touchdowns, 69 yards rushing and 4 scores. So he's getting it done with, not as much his arm as I probably would like, but he's getting it done with his legs. He's mobile. And along with Finn, Jaquez Stewart and Penny Boone have split carries. Toledo ranks 28th in the country in rushing success rate. And this San Diego State defense that is, has been so stout over the last couple of years, they're just 76th at defending the rush. They're 78th in passing success on defense. They've been leaky, and Toledo has the best defense in the MAC. They returned a ton of production. They're one of the best defenses, in the G5, in my opinion. And I think they have a huge advantage against the San Diego State offense that's just dreadful. I really hope Colin Wilson's not still betting these overs. Toledo's 21st at defending finishing drives. San Diego State is 116th at finishing drives on offense. The Rockets are 17th at creating havoc. The Aztecs are just 82nd at preventing it. Braxton Burmeister is bad. I thought he would be an upgrade. He's completing 52% of his passes. He's averaging 55 passing yards per game. 55 per game. He struggled against Idaho State. He completed like 55% of his passes against Idaho State. And, San Diego State's strength has kind of always been their running game. Last year's second leading rusher, who was their returning top back, Chance Bell, he's hurt. He's not expected to play. They came out yesterday and said there's a chance, but it's highly unlikely. Their leading receiver right now has 6 catches in 3 games. 6 catches. He's their leading receiver. I think Toledo can win this game by a field goal. I think Finn's the best player on the field. I think their defense is better than San Diego State's defense. And I don't know how San Diego State's going to just outscore teams. They're so bad on offense. So I'll lay with Toledo, sticking in the MAC. You have another MAC pick for us?
I do not. I don't have one more MAC pick in my bag of tricks. I will say San Diego State is still riding on the, their perception and the play that they had in 2021. They're not the same team at all. Defensively, I think they got exposed in the opener against Arizona, and you can beat them through the air, on the grounds. And Toledo's a balanced team. And honestly, that just seemed like a neck crack game for Ohio State. They clearly wanted to prove that hangover game they had against Arkansas State was a fluke. They go ahead and boat race the Rockets. I think that has little to no impact whatsoever on this game. So I'm glad you're looking beyond that box score and looking in particular in this matchup against the Aztecs. So I'm with you on that pick. I'm going to finish up mine with a team that we detailed pretty thoroughly in August in the Mountain West, and that's Wyoming. Surprising 3-1 start for the Pokes. They upset Air Force in really a strange game. Air Force misses a kick. Otherwise, it could have gone to overtime. They win 17-14. When it comes to laying north of 3 touchdowns, which is what BYU is laying here at home, 22.5 as of this recording, you worry about the backdoor cover. You worry about a team throwing the ball down the field at the end of the game and potentially getting a score. Wyoming is run heavy. They're low scoring, 21 points per game. And when you look at all the key metrics through the air, at best, they're 118th nationally. At worst, I would argue they're probably the worst passing attack in the G5. So because of that, I think BYU in a nice bounce back spot after playing back to back games against Power Five programs. They beat Baylor at home. They lose pretty convincingly at Oregon. Even with their injuries at wide receiver, I'll go ahead and break some news here. Puka Nakua, they've kept it on the down low. He's got a high ankle sprain. That means he's done for September. They keep saying he's day to day. He was walking around in a boot.
Is it boot? Yeah.
They even did, shout out to the social media team. They even cropped it. He was getting off the plane in Eugene, and they're like, Puka's here. Every other person that they showed getting off the plane, it was the full body shot. They did not show him, from the knee down because he was wearing the boot. Same thing with Gunnar Romney. He has a lacerated kidney. I think it's very unlikely that he's going to, lace it up here and play. But even so, I think this is a bounce back game for Jaron Hall. Roberts has been a nice revelation at wide receiver. It's difficult for me to look at the Oregon game and say that's the real BYU team and not the one that looked masterful defensively against Baylor. They took everything away in the air for Shapen, and they were really physical on the ground for a run defense that has had its ups and downs this year. I just don't see Wyoming hanging around. And when they do get down and the game flow and the game scripts, basically forces them into a corner where they have to throw, Peasley's not going to be able to get it done. So I'm going to go ahead here with the Cougs laying 22.5. I'd lay it all the way up to 24. I think this is a nice opportunity for them to get right emotionally. And with a veteran coach like Sataki, I think there's no reason to think there's going to be a hangover from losing at Oregon. The Cougars, I know they have some injuries. I know they have some warts, but this is still a top 25 caliber team against a Wyoming team that we figured would be in the bottom 20 nationally. So where are you on this matchup out West?
I totally agree. I think BYU is one of those teams that I always kind of feel like they always kind of just seem underrated. And I think them getting smoked last week just only, made that stronger. And I mean, my feelings on Wyoming. So yeah, I absolutely agree with you. For my next pick, also real quick, there's no better sign you make a convincing argument than when you get a notification mid-podcast that our producer, Matt Mitchell, just live bet TCU as we're recording. So I guess I was convincing. But anyway, my last pick of the G5 high five, I'm going back to Boone. I'm going to App State -7. Welcome to the Sun Belt, James Madison. What a wild 3 weeks for Mountaineer fans. First, they lose a 63-61, just banana lands heartbreaker to North Carolina. Then they get the thrilling upset at number 6 Texas A&M. Then they went on a crazy walk-off Hail Mary against Troy. Don't worry, Mountaineer fans. I think you finally get to rest the old blood pressure, relax a little bit. James Madison, they've had 2 cupcakes against Middle Tennessee, who stinks, and Norfolk State. Nice little ease into the FBS. They did beat them both convincingly, which I was impressed with. But now it's time to wake up. Now it's the real show. This App State team's been battle tested. They played an in-state ACC rival. They went on the road to an SEC school. They faced a very good Sun Belt Conference opponent. And, I could understand the argument if it's like, oh, this is a letdown spot for them after 3 hard games. But for me, this is kind of the let's just relax and play our game. App State is perennially, whatever word I'm trying to say, consistently, App State has consistently been one of the, more better teams in the Sun Belt and in the G5. I just trust them more. And how many of these James Madison players would start at App State? Probably wide receiver Chris Thornton, probably James Carpenter on the D line.
Centeo, cough over Chase Bryce, but continue.
No shot. So 2, maybe 3. I think they have a linebacker that's pretty good. But when I was looking through, I'm like, there's maybe 2 guys here I think would start at App State. I think App State's going to dominate this game in the trenches, both sides of the ball. App State leads the country at preventing havoc on offense, and PFF has them graded as the 7th best pass rush on defense. James Madison's pretty small up front. So I think James Madison's look good. I think they'll be in the mix soon enough, but I think App State gives them a nice welcome to the big leagues here. Chase Bryce, Peoples, and Noel should run all over them. I'm going to go with the App State laying a touchdown.
That's a pass for me. I do love the over. because when you look at these two teams, Kirk Cignetti, 35-5 in his last 40 games, dating back to all their dominance at the FCS level. They were within a touchdown of North Dakota State in the semis last year. A really good team in 2021. He only brings 8 starters over. So there was a lot of, I think, justified skepticism over how good the Dukes could be. Offensively, they bring in Centeio, who was, an afterthought at Colorado State. And he's been one of, according to Pro Football Focus, one of the top quarterbacks in the entire country and a true dual threat, which I think is going to be necessary because, as you bring up, App State's going to be able to put pressure on him. So he's going to have to make plays outside the pocket, move the chains with his legs. I just think that they're going to be able to score because they've been so dynamic on offense. But defensively, they do not have the personnel to hold up against an App State running game. So I'm going to go ahead and play the over. I think it's sitting right now at 58.5. I played all the way up to 62. I do think in the second half, when App State is in those pressure situations, that 4-minute offense to try to run out the clock, they're going to be able to get it done. But 7 seems just a little rich for my blood, given the fact that they've been lucky. Last week they should have lost, and I still think there's some issues that they have defensively. Through the air, you saw Troy being able to move the ball that way. I'll just go with the over there, but I think your point is well taken in that how much can you glean from James Madison playing the Blue Raiders and the Spartans of Norfolk State? Probably not all that much. So this is a difficult game to cap in that regard for me, but I'll just go ahead with a high scoring game in the Sun Belt.